Hello viewers, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in this session, we are going to start how to generate and improve code with Azure OpenAI Service. This is the sixth video of 9-part series on Azure OpenAI exercises or hands-on. Okay, so I have opened this link in a new tab here and let's proceed. So generate and improve code with Azure OpenAI Service. Azure OpenAI Service models can generate code for you using natural language prompts, fixing bugs in completed code, and providing code comments. These models can also explain and simplify existing code to help you understand what it does and how it improves. So this exercise will take 25 minutes and we have two prerequisites. One is Azure subscription and second is access to Azure OpenAI Service. If you don't know how to request access to Azure OpenAI Service, please click on the I button and watch one of my previous videos where I have shown it. Next, moving on, we need to provision an Azure OpenAI resource. This also I have shown in my previous video sessions within this series. So go to that playlist and try to see how I have created this Azure OpenAI resource. Now, with this, we are moving on to the next step where to deploy a Azure OpenAI model, which is a ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo model. Okay, and it will be a default version. We will deploy this model and we'll deploy with this name. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, I have already created Azure OpenAI Service 2023. This is Azure OpenAI Service name. In this Azure OpenAI Service, once you open this, you will be presented with this Explore button. Once you click this, it will open this Azure OpenAI Studio. In the Azure OpenAI Studio, you will be presented with this sidebar where you'll see Chat Playground to do prompting or prompt engineering, completions, then DALI, which is a text to image generation model, and the ChatGPT models that are available to deploy and work with Azure OpenAI Service, and any training data or data files that you need to upload to work with these models. Okay, there are content filters, there are some quotas on the models, which you can click on these different options and you can just go through that. Okay, so let me go to the deployment where we need to deploy our Turbo model. Okay, so we have to take GPT 35 Turbo or 3.5 model. We need to select the default model and we have to give it 35 Turbo as the deployment name. And I'll click create. It will deploy that model. Once the model is deployed, you click on this and you will be able to see the properties related to the model, like number of tokens, rate limiting, all these information. Okay, and the model name, all these information. So this is how we are able to deploy our model. Next, once the ChatGPT model is deployed, we have to go to Chat Playground in the Azure OpenAI Studio and set the assistant to default system message. And in the chat session, we have to give this prompt. So here you can see I have Azure OpenAI Studio open. Now I have to go to chat. Now we are in the Chat Playground where we can see assistant setup and chat session along with some configuration. Now in the assistant setup, we have to set the template as default and continue. Setup is set to default. What I'll do, we have to give one prompt here. Let me copy this prompt. This prompt, what we are doing, we are asking ChatGPT model to write a function in Python that takes a character and string as input and return how many times that character appears in the string. Once we give this prompt, it is going to generate a Python code which takes the character which need to be searched within a string and gives a count of that character within that string. Okay, so this is in the Python. Now, here, once we have the response, we can ask our model to convert this in a C# code. So do the same thing, but this time write in the C# code. And now this code will be converted to a C# code. You can again ask this to convert in a JavaScript code. And now we can see the output of the code in the form of a JavaScript. So that's how our model is going to give the code based on our prompt. Next, we can also ask our model to explain the code that someone has written. So what we'll do, we'll write what does the following function do, and we define this function. So we give this function code. Next, what does the following function do? Now it will explain how or what this function does. Next, we can ask our model to rewrite the code in C#. And now we can see the C# code written for the above function. So that's how it's able to generate a code, rewrite that in different languages as well, also explain the code. Okay. Next, we'll see how we can integrate this feature into one of our application. So to run that application, we need to go to Cloud Shell and clone application code within our Cloud Shell. So if you are not familiar with how to enable Cloud Shell in Azure, see one of the videos from within this session where I have explained how to create a storage where you will host your Cloud Shell, and within that Cloud Shell you will log into Bash Shell, okay, or Bash command prompt. So that I have already done here, okay, and I am already in Bash Shell, okay. Now the next step is to clone this repository, okay. So I'll clone this. I'll just do this, Control-Shift V to paste this and enter. Now this destination path is already existing because I have done some hands-on already. So I'll just remove it first and then again clone the repository. And now it is cloned. Now once our code repository is created, okay, we can also do a list of directory, and we can see Azure OpenAI folder is created here. We can change directory to Azure OpenAI, and then within Azure OpenAI we have lab files. So let's go to lab files, again do listing of directory, and we are doing a code generation. So we have to move to this directory. I'll do change directory 04 tab to select this directory and do the enter. So now we are into our code generation application. I'll do code space full stop and enter. This will open Visual Studio Code where we have our application written in C# as well as in Python. So those who are familiar with C# or comfortable with C#, they need to work with C# application, and those who are comfortable with Python, they need to work with the Python codes or samples. Here we have some functions written in C# and Python, and also there is one more directory like GoFish where we have C# project for GoFish, and we have a Python file as well. Okay, so in both the languages. Next, since we are now in Visual Studio Code already within this directory, I have opened Visual Studio Code. Next, we will move on to configuring our application. So to configure the application, what we need endpoint and the access key and that model name, which is 35 turbo. So all these three values we need to configure within our application.settings, application.settings.json file, or the environment file respectively, as per your choice of programming language. Next, I'm comfortable with Python, so I'll be doing everything in Python. But those who are working with C#, they need to import or this library or package, okay? And those who are working with Python, they need to install these two packages. Next, let me do these installations. So pip install python.environment and pip install OpenAI. So I'll do that. Pip install python.environment to work with the environment file, and then OpenAI. So these two packages, I can just write the script or command like this, and you can see these requirements are already satisfied because I have already installed these packages. Okay, but if it's not installed for you, you'll see some downloading options going on, and after that it will install those packages. Next, once these packages are installed, we'll start working on our program code. Okay, so in the code of C#, you need to import this library, okay, using azure.ai.openai. For Python, we need to do this, import OpenAI package. So I'll go there. In the Visual Studio Code, I'll go to code generation folder. Okay, I'll import this. I'll import this package. I'll do Control-S to save the file. Then I'll copy this configuration of the API endpoint, where we have to mention the API type, API URL, API version, and API access key. So all these values, I'm going to put it here. I will properly indent it so that it will not throw any error. I don't need the second comment line. Next, we have to build our prompt in such a manner that we have to set our assistant to play a role of a developer, and then we have to give the user prompt one by one. Okay, so these two roles we are setting, and then we are calling the OpenAI with these messages to get the response. So I'll copy that as well, and this need to be pasted here. I'll indent it properly, and I don't need this second line comment. Again, I'll do Control-S to save this file. Once the file is saved, let me explain it from top to bottom. So what we are doing here, we are importing these packages so that we can work with directory, environment file, and OpenAI API. So these three different packages for three different functionalities. Now we are loading these three values like endpoint, key, and the model name. These three values we need to set in the environment file. So let's do that. I have this OpenAI service. I have to go to keys and endpoint and copy the key, paste it here for the key. Then I have to go back to key and endpoints. I'll copy the endpoint URL. I'll paste it in the endpoint URL. And then in Azure OpenAI deployment, I have to write 35 turbo, which is the model name. I'll control S to save this file. The environment file is also set. Now I'll move back to code generation file. So now these three values will be loaded, okay, using load.environment settings. Next, in the OpenAI configuration settings, we are setting the API type, API base URL, API version, and the API access key. And then we are writing a while loop to present the option of what we want to do with our sample code. Do we want to add a comment to the sample code or function, or do we want to write unit test case for that function, or we have a different function like my gofish Python file, which is another code. Do we want to fix any error within that program, and do we want to quit the existing this execution of this program? So these four options will be running one by one, and as per our choice, we want to fix the code or comment the code, and or add the unit test cases, or also quit the program. So that's the whole while loop. Next, we are defining a function call to OpenAI model, and within that model, we are setting system message to set assistant to act as a programmer, which writes the code, and then user message or the prompt. So that prompt will be out of these three choices. It could be one of the choices as a prompt, and based on these system message and user messages, this message will be set, and this message will be sent to OpenAI service. Okay, and then it will respond back. Now, here you can see one if condition to print the response to the console. Okay, this flag we are setting here. So if we set it to true, it will respond with the full response, or if we set it to false, it will just give us the response, no other metadata. Okay, and then all these parameters we are setting, like which model we are selecting, what would be the temperature, or temperature is nothing but the parameter to see the randomness of or variations of our model, like how much we want our model to vary. The more the value, the more random or varied answers it would give. Okay, so we can set it up to a maximum of 1, or we can set it to a 0, where the variation will be very less, okay, in the responses. Next, we are printing the result to one of the file app.txt, which you can see in the results folder. Okay, so currently it is blank. Okay, so now let's execute this code. We have our code set up. We have our environment file also set up. I'll do clear to clear the console, and I'll do listing directory to see the folders. I'll change directly to Python directory, and now I will do ls to see this is the code generation.python file that we want to execute. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll write Python and then code generation file name, and I'll execute. Now I'm presented with these choices. I'll give 1 so that it can add comment to my function. Once this code is executed, we'll be able to see in the app.txt there are some codes, comments added for this function, right? One by one. Now where this function is, function.py. Here we do not see any comment, but in the response we can see comments are added to this function. Let me go to second option. We have to write the unit test cases for this function. Okay. So the model will respond back with the unit test cases. Okay. Now this file need to change. So I'll switch back and again switch back. So here I can see it has added these 4 test cases and also explaining what each of these test cases are doing. Okay. What values they are checking. So that's how it is generating unit test cases as well. Now the third option is Go Fish card game. Let's see the hands-on where it is going to fix this. Okay. So after running the application and going one by one for each choices, for the third choice, it's fixing the Go Fish game. And in the Go Fish game, what it is correcting? It's correcting line 18 and 31. Okay. So first let's see in this code what are line 18. Line 18 is this condition, length of the deck should be less than 0, and 31, where the comment is to add a point to the player score, but it is actually deducting 1 point, minus equal to 1, which is deducting the point, 1 point, right, from the player's score. It should be other case, like it should be plus equal to 1 to add the player's score, and it should be greater than 0. So let's execute this program with third option to fix the Go Fish game. And now we can see the response back. Let's go to app.text. Here we can see this function being written again into app.text. But this time we see the condition is changed. Length of the deck is greater than 0, fix the while loop condition. It's also putting one comment here. And here you can see add a point to the player's score, where the player's score was minus equal to 1. Now player's score is plus equal to. So here it's adding one comment here as well, like fix the score code. So that's how it's able to fix the code as well. Next, the app for the GoFish sample code can be run. If you replace the lines with the bugs with a response from the Azure API, if you run it without the fixes, it will not work correctly. It is important to note that even though the code for this GoFish app was corrected for something, it's not a strictly accurate representation of the game. If you look closely, there are issues with not checking if the deck is empty when drawing cards, not removing pairs from the player's hands when they get a pair, and a few other bugs that require understanding of card games to realize. This is a great example of how useful generative AI models can be to assist the code generation, but can't be trusted as correct and need to be verified by developer. Mind it, the response that we are getting from generative AI, it can't be trusted 100%. It could have some issues, like there are some bugs which it will not be able to fix or it will miss out. So there need to be a proper verification is required for that code. So a developer who is well versed need to verify that code, whatever it is generated by AI model, right? So mind it. Now, if you would like to see the full response from Azure OpenAI, you can set the full response variable to true and rerun the app. This will give us the full responses. So what I'll do, I'll go to codegeneration.py. I'll change this flag to true so that it will respond back to with the full response. I did Control S to save it, and I'll quit it again. This last execution, I'll rerun the program, and I'll select the choices one by one. 1, 2, 3. And here we can see for each of these options, 1, 2, or 3, we are getting this full response. This is the full response in the JSON format. 1, 2, and 3. So that's all for now in this session, where we saw how we can integrate OpenAI services to generate code, to fix the code, to convert the code into different languages, put the comments, write the unit test cases. All these options are available with OpenAI models. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe my videos. Also put any comments or feedback if you don't like anything in my video, and I will try to improve it. Thank you. Bye bye.